Hello and welcome to this month's wrap up for March. March in comparison to February was definitely better in that it was completely uneventful, which is exactly what I was hoping for. As you know, in February my grandmother passed away and my 3-year relationship ended, so it was quite the month for grieving and loss. So March has been a wonderful time to just recover and recuperate. That being said, I did adopt a 4th kitten in March, which kept me very, very busy and consumed all of my time, in that I had to do a very slow introduction as my other cats, Sylvie and Willow, weren't quite on board with Blue. Sylvie, thankfully now, is great friends. They play and they sleep together. Unfortunately, Willow is still very chasey and growly, but I'm just hoping that with time she'll come to accept Blue and we'll all be a happy family. I'm definitely at my capacity with 4 cats. I'm not adopting anymore, but Bluebell Sunday is absolutely wonderful. She's so cuddly, which I'm not used to, haven't had that before, and she lets me carry her around, which is a treat. Yeah, our house is very full of cats and kids. Besides that, I haven't really done much, to be honest. It's like I said, it's been a very quiet month and the kitten has kept me on my toes. So that's all I have to update you in terms of my life updates. Now on to my favorite things of this month. In regards to TV, the girls and I did finish Adventure Time, but we did watch and finish Adventure Time Distant Lands. And although it was only very short, I would say that my favorite episode out of the, I think, 4 episodes there was the one with Princess Bubblegum and Marceline and their relationship, their romantic relationship, which I thought was absolutely adorable and I loved it. So we did have a fun time and we're very much looking forward to, I think they're bringing out a series of Fiona and Cake, and we're looking forward to that immensely. With film, I didn't watch anything, didn't watch any movies. I barely watched any media this month. I just didn't have time to sit down on the couch and watch a movie or watch a TV show, but I did read. And so my favorite non-fiction book of this month is The Magic of Mushrooms, and it is absolutely stunning. The quality and the workmanship is phenomenal. The illustrations are gorgeous. The absolute breadth of information that are to do with the fungi kingdom is immense. And it was so wonderful learning about them, not only as a culinary source, but as a poison, as a medicine, in folklore, in magic, everything. Just everything that mushrooms do was in there. And it wasn't just mushrooms, obviously, it was also lichen and yeast and mold. But fascinating, fascinating organisms. And this book was just perfectly done, so well done. My favorite fiction book of this month, it was tough, but I would have to say it's going to I Who Have Never Known Men. This book just haunted me, absolutely haunted me. It's about a young girl who finds herself in a prison cell with 39 other women ranging in age. She has no recollection of the time before, really. The other women do remember their time on Earth, but they have no idea how they ended up in this prison cell, guarded by these guards. They don't know if they're even still on Earth. It was just, I can't really say a lot about it without giving away what happens. But it was just so well done, and it deals with a lot about life and death and what it means to be a human, and I just thought it was amazing. In terms of music, I am very much still just binging Måneskin's new album Rush. I'm sort of the type of person that will just absolutely kill something to death until I get sick of it. So I'm still listening to that, although I did listen to Miley Cyrus's. In terms of purchases, I did buy some candles with some sort of foodie scents like maple pancakes and cinnamon donuts, and that was pretty much my only big purchase of this month. Now onto the tarot decks and the oracle decks. I did have a few Kickstarters come in this month, so I did play with more decks than I usually do in a month, because when I get a Kickstarter I like to put it up straight away so that people can see it and can decide if they want to buy it normally off the Etsy store. I find that most creators put their tarot decks or oracle decks on Etsy stores after their Kickstarter. They always tend to have extras left over. If I had to pick my favorites, my favorite tarot deck was definitely the Kitten Nugget tarot deck. I absolutely love it. I think it's excellent quality. It's really fun and playful and energetic and just really positive and high vibes. So I do absolutely love that. I've still got my reviews coming out for a few of the decks that I've worked with this month, so they're still coming. But my favorite oracle deck was probably the Divine Codes oracle deck. I just really love the collage style, and the backs are to die for. Lilac roses, yes please, thank you very much. Because lilac roses are actually my favorite flower, the number 1. So I absolutely adored the aesthetic of this deck. And those are my favorite decks of this month. I'm actually going to do my craft cafe segment here. I thought I would just combine it because now that I've done the reviews of decks separately, except for the compendium witches, which I'll add on to this because I filmed it ages ago, I thought I'd tell you what I've made this month. In terms of food, I made this delicious coffee no churn ice cream. So this book of no churn ice cream recipes, I'm slowly making my way through it. I made the dulce de leche, but I used a supermarket bought dulce de leche and it was subpar, guys. It was just not it. I think this would be delicious if I actually bought a proper Latin American dulce de leche that's high quality. So I'll definitely do that. Try that recipe again with a better dulce de leche. I did not use coffee extract. I decided just to sub very concentrated, strong coffee and poured that in instead, and it worked out absolutely perfectly. So I really do love this book because my ex-boyfriend, still best friend, loves to have ice cream, so I like to have someone hand when he comes to visit and play with the girls, and this way it's really not loaded with a lot of the crap that you see in regular bought ice cream. So I don't really love ice cream. I'm not really big on eating dairy. I have like a taste just so I know, was it good? And yeah, the coffee one was really, really good. I also made this absolutely delicious chicken peanut butter. I forgot what the name of the recipe is, but it was yum, and it wasn't really anything I'd had before. It wasn't like a flavor profile I tried, but it was really easy to make. I would definitely probably not use kale next time. I find kale just is too tough, so I think I definitely just use spinach or silver beet to replace that. But this was really delicious. I did add more peanut butter because I feel like peanut butter is something you can never have enough of. I also, for my one, definitely omitted the spice, like the chili, because I can't handle it. My throat closes up and I hiccup. So those were definitely the absolute standout recipes of this month. I tried a lot of new recipes, but I'm not even going to bother talking about them unless they were top tier. You know, like why bother telling you about a mediocre recipe? Those were pretty much the only two standouts that I've put into my definitely make again pile. On to the things that I have crocheted. I made a tarot mat out of some scrap yarns, and to be honest with you though, I'm kind of like at my capacity for tarot mats and placemats, and I still have so much scrap yarn left, and I'm not really loving crocheting anymore. I know ever since I injured myself, it's sort of lost its sparkle, and I'm always do very little. I love the end product, not a really enjoyable practice for me anymore. Yet I have so much yarn. I don't know who anybody else that gets into anything to do with yarn. You go a bit yarn crazy, I think, in the beginning, and you just buy every single yarn that you think, oh my God, that looks gorgeous, even though I have no use for it yet. Going back in time, I wish I'd been Chanel. Buy a yarn when you have a tarot deck to do, and then you can match it exactly rather than just buying everything up. But I have a lot of yarn to use. And because no one in my family can wear wool, and most of my yarn is wool, I do have a lot of cotton and bamboo too. So those I'm using up easily in terms of making garments, but the wool ones, we can't wear it. So it's like, what do you do with it? And I don't know how many more tarot decks and oracle decks I am possibly going to buy. So I am probably going to give most of my yarn collection to my best friend, since she's such a voracious knitter. She just knits a storm up. She crochets as well, but mostly knits, and she's constantly making stuff all the time. I'll probably pass some more on to her and just, I guess, keep some. I'm making a blanket as well. So I will show you my progress on the blanket. I'm just going to go get it. Okay, so let me show you my blanket. I am making it so it's as large as my bed. As you can see, I'm doing, even though this looks like dark gray blue on screen, it's very purple. I am doing mostly oranges, pinks, and purples, using those scraps to make the blanket. Would I do a blanket like this again? No. Oh, what stitch am I using? I'm using moss stitch. What was it? I think it's also called linen stitch. I wouldn't do this again because this is quite heavy. It gets really heavy to hold and crochet. So I think in the future, if I make a scrap blanket, which I think is the best way to use up my yarn personally, because at least blankets go on top so they don't itch. I'm going to just do it like square by square. I'll just use up all the yarn I have and then just attach it to some other ones. So that way it's not so laborious. But that is my big project that is continuous. Thanks to my friend Kate for this yarn right here that she gave me to add. I also made a tarot bag. So I used this yarn to do it, and I think it's cute. I used it for... I also made this tarot bag right here. As usual, I used Suzette stitch on it. That is a batin. And I made this for my ta-da Death Doula deck because I just thought the colors went well. This yarn was nice. I don't love it, so I'm not sure if I'd use it again. but I'm happy with the colorway because I feel like it definitely matches the deck that's inside. That is the only tarot bag that I have made this month, and that's because it's obviously taken me longer to know whether or not I'm keeping a deck in my collection, and if I'm not going to make a tarot bag for it. I'm just going to pass it on with this box. So that is the only bag that I have made. But yeah, I don't think there's much else to chat about. I have just been, like I said, so busy with Blue. One of the reasons that I did get Blue was because my other cat Sylvie was becoming bored and was trying to constantly run outside. So even with the thousands of cat trees and beds and toys and vertical cat runs and me being home all day to play, every time I opened the door, she just right out there like a rocket. And it was very, very stressful having to try and chase her down the street and bring her back. And the good news is that it has worked in terms of I've had the door open to get a package and she has sat there and not run out. So having Blue around has seemed to be quite enriching for her, which is what I was hoping. The other cats are all fine, they don't do this stuff. It was just her. She was just go night and day, never sleeping, always like ripping up my curtains, being quite destructive. But she has mellowed a lot out in that she's just being chased around by a kitten all day. So I think she's just too tired to wreak havoc and get up to mischief. But yeah, otherwise I'm just busy doing my job, making videos for this channel and for my reading vlog, which is what I do all the time. I read all the time. So I'm always making videos for that. And just taking care of my kids. Not yet obviously ready to start dating again. In the future, I will have to go back on the apps. It's just an evil necessity because I live a very hermetic life, and in the suburb that I do live in, there are no prospective suitors available. So it's just something I will have to eventually do, because even though I'm quite content on my own, I would like someone to live a life with and to have memories with. I think, especially too, once my children are grown, it would be nice to have a companion. So it's not quite there yet, still have some healing to do. But I have come a long way since my breakup, which was almost 6 weeks ago. It was just before Valentine's Day in February. But yeah, my ex and I are great friends, and we still hang out with each other like 5 days a week, which I know a lot of people think is odd. But it works for us. Like I said, being friends was always the strongest part of our relationship. We just weren't romantically compatible. We tried our best. It was not to be. Maybe in the future, who knows? Who knows what could happen in the future? But for now, just not lining up in that respect. And eventually I will dip my toes back in the dating pool. We'll see. I've got 4 kids and 2 cats, and I barely leave my house. It's going to take a special someone to join this circus, but yeah, we'll see what happens. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, it's all good. I've got wonderful friends and cats and kids and family, so I am definitely very, very fortunate and lucky. So this is the Compendium of Witches. I pre-ordered this so long ago, months and months and months, to the point where I was emailing them like, what's going on? Because I noticed that it was out now. It was no longer a pre-order. It was available on other websites. And they're like, yeah, look, we're having issues getting our copies. Would you like us to cancel or wait? And I'm like, well, I may as well just wait. Probably should have canceled it and just bought it directly from somebody else. But I waited. It finally came. So as I might have mentioned previously, I only do 4 new decks in a month, like 4 or 5 max. I don't like to work with too many new decks in a month, otherwise I don't really get a taste for them. So sometimes if I get 8 decks in, I'll put 3 aside to work with in another month. So this one I did receive late February, but I'm just worked with it this month. So this is the Compendium of Witches. So I think I'd seen it on everyone's YouTube, and I'm like, that looks fascinating. And that's why I pre-ordered it. But let's talk about the actual deck. So the guidebook is deceptive. It looks like it's a chunky boy, but I think it only goes to here. Yeah, because it's in multiple languages. So this is really the booklet that you have. So there's not a lot, especially for the objects rather than the witches. That's all you get. In the witches, you get that, and then you just get a bit about the actual witch. It's not as comprehensive as I was hoping. I was really hoping this would be more of a study deck and there'd be a lot of information. And so the guidebook let me down too with even the meanings. I just find it hard to use it on anything. So this is the cards. The back pattern is lovely. I hate this cardstock. It is matte. It's quite textured. It's one of those rough ones, but it's really papery.
it's just not a cardstock I really like. I don't like the way it feels in my hands when I hold it. Like, it shuffles fine, but I don't love it. I don't love it. So the artwork, it's a mixed bag. So like I said, sometimes you have the witches, but they're just so varied. It feels like it's almost a multi-artist deck, because like, look at the difference even between the two witches. And I know they're obviously from very different time periods and stuff, but it's just a bit incohesive. And who they chose was sometimes a bit odd. I was like, why that person? What do we really know about that person? There's like not much information about them. I love some of the pictures of the objects. I think they're cool. So like, the artwork is fine. Some I really like, some I'm just meh about, and there's a few that I'm like, ooh, no, I don't like that at all. And I'll show you. Like, this one doesn't really do it for me. I don't like anything too occulty. I find with my decks, I do so much shadow work in general. Like, I am a Scorpio. My South Node is also in Scorpio. So like, anything to do with shadow work and that, I'm just, you know, I do a lot. And so when I get my decks out, I'm sort of use these as a form of beauty and artwork as well. And I don't want anything too disturbing. Like, my mind's already disturbing enough that I need sort of beauty in my other world to fill my brain with. It's like, we don't need to add to the disturbingness that's already in there. And so some of these are just unsettling. Like this card, I can't, every time I see it, I'm like, no. I used to watch so much horror as a child. I think it's just when you're traumatized, sometimes you just, that's what you know, and so you just seek out more trauma. And now I don't consume anything that is traumatizing for me or unsettling for me. I'm like, no, we're not. We're trying to add to the peace and the joy. So I don't want this. I don't want it. I have shadow decks that I use, like the Lantern Oracle or Earth, Moon, and Shadow, and they're fine. Like, they work without disturbing me visually. I don't need the visual disturbance. So I've tried using it, like immediately I just felt like, oh, I don't think this is for me. I just don't think at this time in my life, this deck is really offering much. And I did a deck interview and it wasn't like amazing. So that's a big thing too with my deck interview. It can tell me a lot about the deck immediately. And with this one, I was just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to go. So I did keep using it. I kept an open mind, but it just really wasn't, I couldn't figure it out. Like, I couldn't make our puzzle pieces fit. And I'm just like, I just don't even feel guilt about letting it go. That's the thing. Like, I'm like, yeah, it's not a bad deck. Like, once again, it's not like, oh, I hate this deck. It's just like, I just don't see how it's fitting into my practice at this point in time. And like I said, I'm at the point where I don't want to have an absolute smorgasbord of decks, because I find that overwhelming. I feel guilt too for not using decks. Like, it's one of those things. And if there's too much that I've got to get through, it becomes a chore. Like, I've got to make sure I play with all of these decks this year, and if there's too much, I get stressed out. And I don't want to be stressful. It's, you know, I am a less is more person when it comes to belongings, everything, like jewelry, everything. Less choice, the better for me. So straight away, I'm like, I don't think this is for me. I'm going to pass on to someone that might have more use for it too, because also, like, with the kind of witchcraft or whatever, it's not, this isn't my, this is not my, like, area, how I practice. And if I want to learn about women in history, I just do that through books, so I don't need a deck to do that. But yeah, this just unfortunately isn't fitting with me right now, so I will be rehoming this one.
But that is everything for this month. I hope that wherever you are having a gorgeous morning, afternoon, or evening. And as always, stay wild, star child.